I literally ate half of a cheesecake yesterday. No, it was a apple pie cheesecake. So it was like cheesecake filling. It had like the crust was made with like those Biscoff cookies. Um, and then the top was or like so it was like a pretty good size layer of like cream cheese filling or like typical cheesecake sort of filling, just slightly spiced. And then a layer of like apples like you'd have on like an apple pie, so brown sugar, all that, and then topped with the cinnamon and oat and flour kind of crumble. God, that was good. Absolutely no regrets. Like it's one of those things that like I was drinking coffee as I was eating it just to keep myself awake to eat more. Did not know I had a sweet tooth until I had my wife. And I was like, oh yeah, no, apparently I do like cheesecake and cobbler and all of those fun things. All right, so we are going to be talking about the digestive system. Now, as per always, I recommend that you kind of start thinking about the system in terms of what we already know. So, what do we already know about the digestive system? Like, what do we know about its organization? Do we know some of its parts and pieces already? We do, right? So, we know we start with the mouth and then we're going to go down to our stomach. Do we know what the thing in between the two is called? Esophagus. Perfect. All right, so we're going to go from the mouth to the esophagus to the stomach. After we leave the stomach, we're going to go into the small intestines. After the small intestines, we go into the large intestines. And then finally, we're going to leave. Okay. Now, the goal of the digestive system is to what? Exactly. Okay. We're trying to break the food down into their individual nutrient components. Okay. So if it's a protein, we're going to try and break it down into amino acids. If it contains fats, we're going to try and turn those fats into triglycerides that we can move through the bloodstream. If it's big complex carbohydrates, we're going to try and turn it into single carbohydrates, right? All of that is to get stuff into the blood so that we can get stuff out to the tissues. Okay. Now, each of those organs that we just talked about is going to play a major role in doing that. Okay. Now, we also, in addition to those main organs, we're also going to have lots of accessory organs. Okay. Uh, this is going to be anything like your salivary glands to, or your pancreas, your liver, and your gallbladder. These are all going to be things that are going to inject things into that primary tube. Okay. So we have two categories of organs here. We have the gastrointestinal tract, which is what we just talked about, like where we're going from the mouth to the esophagus to the stomach to the intestines. That is a single tube that's going to run all the way through your body, right? But associated with that tube, we have to add a bunch of stuff to it to help the food do different things, whether it's to break the food down or to act as a lubricant or whatever that may be. All of those things that are pumping out, whether it's digestive enzymes or liquids and things like that, those are all going to be accessory organs. Okay, so they're going to be off of the primary tube. Okay. But within each of those kind of components, we are going to be trying to break the food down into smaller components so that we can eventually absorb some of those. Now, some important accessory organs, like I said before, your salivary glands, your liver, your pancreas. Salivary glands, we know we are secreting saliva. Saliva is going to be a combination of a couple of enzymes, as well as some water that's going to act as kind of a lubricant. Then we've also got the liver. Anyone know what the liver secretes as far as digestion? Bile. Perfect. You know what bile does? No. Okay. And that's, huh? Hey, no, that's fine. We'll get there in a second. It does produce bile. We're going to use bile to help us mix fat with water. Okay. So just like if I have used the butter in a jar of water analogy a couple times, they just simply don't mix. If you put a bunch of butter in a pan, you can pour as much water on that pan as you want, and the butter is going to stay there. You won't be able to clean the butter off. Okay, unless you do what? You add soap, right? The soap acts as a surfactant. It's going to let you basically, it's going to surround the little fat molecules, and then you dissolve that little circle of fat as it's being surrounded by soap, and then you can move around both the soap and the fat. Okay, that's exactly what the bile is going to do. The bile is going to basically act as act as something that's going to let us get water, and particularly like these water dissolved enzymes surrounding that fat molecule. Okay, so it's basically going to disrupt the hydrophobicness, which is why it's very, very important. The pancreas. Do we know what we're doing with the pancreas? Looks like a chicken tender. It does look like a chicken tender. Now, our pancreas, our chicken tender, is going to help us dissolve some of those chicken tenders. Namely, they're going to secrete enzymes that are going to help us break down proteins, and proteins that are going, and enzymes that are going to help us break down fats. The two primary ingredients in a chicken tender. At least a good one. Now, another good part of those is flour, because, well, you fry chicken tenders if you're human and not some sort of like weird Nazi. I mean, who eats grilled chicken tenders? It's mostly a joke. If you like grilled chicken, that's totally fair. I just enjoy food in all shapes and forms. All right. We've also got the gallbladder. Gallbladder is important because it's going to store the bile. We also have our teeth and our tongue. So our gastrointestinal tract are going to be basically your oral cavity, so your mouth, esophagus, your stomach, then down, oh, you can't see where I'm pointing, down here into the small intestine. Notice that we have a bunch of folds. Why do we have so many folds? Surface area, exactly. We can fit a whole lot more tube in this space if we convolute the tube. So if we make the tube a bunch of twisties, that means we can fit more tube in there. More tube means we have more surface area of tube, which means we can do more digestion and more absorption, because that's what we're doing in our small intestine. Then we're going to finally get to the large intestine. In the large intestine, we're going to recover a bunch of water from our food, and we're going to then try and concentrate the feces. And then finally, we're going to have the anal canal, at which point all of the waste products that we couldn't do anything with will get expelled. Okay? Now, accessory organs, like I said, we have teeth, tongue. Teeth are there, of course, to help us break down the food, mechanically break down the food. Our tongue is there to help us swallow, while also at the same time helping us taste our food to make sure that our food's not going to try and kill us, which would be inconvenient. Salivary gland secreting saliva, liver secreting bile. Bile gets stored in the pancreas, or not stored in the pancreas, gets stored in the gallbladder, and then gets secreted along with the enzymes from the pancreas to help us break down all the stuff in the intestines. Okay, now, so these 6 main functions then are getting food in, moving things through the tube. We, of course, have to secrete stuff to help us break down all of those things, whether it's a digestive enzyme, various acids or biles, or various acids or bile. Then finally, mechanically and chemically digesting the food. Okay. A lot of people just talk about like, oh, we have this stuff to digest the food. Well, we digest food in 2 different ways. We can mechanically digest food, which is to say we take a big piece of it and break it into smaller pieces, or we can chemically digest the food, at which point we're going to take the actual complex sugars or complex fats or complex proteins and break them down into their monomers. That part is very, very important so that we can actually absorb these things. Is it easy for a protein to cross our cell membranes? No. Which means we need to make it where it is not just a large protein because they are huge. Instead, we need to make them as small as we can get them. And in the case of the proteins, that means breaking them all the way down to amino acids. However, we have a big problem here. That's namely that many of our proteins, say like hemoglobin, has not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 subunits, where each of these is 1,500 amino acids long. That's a lot. Uh, so even if you break them into their components, so you have all 4 subunits, each of those is this long, and that means you have to break down that, right? So when it comes to breaking down proteins, we have to have a lot of steps. Part of the reason that our gastrointestinal tract is so long is because we've got stuff like proteins, fats are huge, many carbohydrates like starches and stuff like that are humongous, right? Many of these things that we are eating are these massively complex structures that are just, well, massive. They're huge. They have lots and lots of pieces. And if we want to get anything out of them efficiently, we have to try and go from this to each individual amino acid. And that's going to be tough, which means we're going to have to go through multiple steps. We can't just put it in one thing and just go from this to this in a single go. We're going to have to go from a big protein to a smaller protein to a smaller protein, and then finally down into amino acid. So this process is going to take a lot of time. Thus, we make the intestine really, really long so that we have lots of time. Okay. So that's going to be our goal, is to try and go from this to this. Okay. So that means we're not only going to do mechanical digestion, because mechanical digestion, you might get lucky and just chop off one of these subunits, or you might take that string of chicken meat and break it down into hundreds of these. Okay. But you still have to continue going further down than even just chewing or even dissolving something in acid, which is still mechanical digestion, because it's actually not breaking it down chemically yet. So we need the chemical digestion, which means we need a chemical that is going to physically chop the chain of amino acids and break them down molecularly. Okay. So that part is also going to be very, very important. Then, well, none of this matters if we can't absorb it. Okay, so we have to have some surface area for absorption as well, so that we can get all those molecules into the blood so we can use them. And we're going to do that either through the blood or the lymph. And then finally, we need to eliminate the stuff that we couldn't use. So that's going to be our goal. Now, to help us do this, that GI tract, well, it's a tube that is exposed to the outside, which means we don't trust any of the things that are inside of it. Okay, which means we're going to line it first and foremost with a layer of mucosa. Now, this is part of the small intestine. One of the ways that we know it's part of the small intestine, because we can see all these little lines, these little ridges in here. Well, these ridges give us surface area, right? I want you to look at this. Not only do we have ridges inside the tube, those ridges have ridges. Pretty much, okay? All of that's to give more surface area. That's also why ruffles are infinitely better than a standard Lay's. Why? Because you have more surface area for more stuff. Whether it's salt or barbecue flavoring or whatever it may be, there's more surface area, so you have more of those flavors on it. So they are going to taste better, okay? There's a reason waffle fries are better than a standard fry, and it's all about surface area. Even though they're a lot harder to cook. But they have more surface area, so you can get more salt on them, which means they taste better. You also get more crisp on them and stuff like that, once again, because of surface area. If you really want to make good fries, like there's especially like if you have like an air fryer, you can still make really, really good fries with an air fryer by like grabbing some like potato wedges or like frozen fries or just frozen slices of potato. Let them thaw for just a couple minutes, like where the outside just starts to get like a little bit kind of wompy. Then put them in like a Gladware container and then shake it around. Okay, as they're slightly softened. Actually, hold on. Now you cook them first. Sorry, you boil them or fry them for just a little bit, make them slightly soft, and then shake them around. Basically, you're just trying to get it where the outside is ready to go. And you can microwave it or something like that too. Basically, you just want to heat it up enough where the outside isn't cooked or the outside isn't frozen anymore. And then you shake it around, and by banging it on the inside of like a container, like a little plastic container, what you're going to do is you're essentially doing this. You're increasing the amount of surface area on the outside because they're going to release all their starches and all that kind of stuff to the outside. So they're just basically going to get banged around and get bruised on the outside, just get covered with all this starch. So now you have all this extra surface area. So then when you cook them, whether in a regular fryer or an air fryer, now you have all this extra surface area that can get more crisp. So this is where you can get something that's very, very crisp. Also, by microwaving them first, you can actually kind of get the center of the potato slightly cooked enough to where it won't completely dry out by the time that you have the outside where it's cooked and nice and crispy in something like an air fryer or in an actual fryer. Because that's one of the things that you're risking those two things. Like if you start, especially like with a big fry, that you can't get the inside cooked enough before the outside is basically just shot, like just because it's way overcooked. Uh, or in like an air fryer, it'll just like pull all of the moisture out. So it's like eating like charcoal or something. By the time the outside it looks nice and crispy. So you like microwave it first so the inside's done. So really all you're doing whenever you're frying is just kind of getting the crisp on the outside. And it's once again surface area. Surface area is everything. That's why you double batter chicken too. More surface area, more flakes, more surface area so you get more crisp. Now, below our folds of folds on the inside of our mucosa, we're then going to get down into the submucosal layers, which is this part, kind of this line right here. And then we're going to get to muscularis. Why do you think we need muscle here? To squeeze it through. Exactly. Most of the gastrointestinal tract will be composed of 2 layers of muscle. The only different section of, or the only part that will not, will be the stomach, and it will add a 3rd layer. Okay, it will add on top of this kind of circular layer, which is on the inside. So we have a circular layer here. So when it contracts, it's basically going to narrow the lumen. When it relaxes, it will allow the lumen to open up. So you can push things, so you can stop movement by closing it, or you can kind of push behind something by closing that. And then here you have this outer longitudinal layer that basically is going to relax and basically allow it easier time for stuff to move through it. Rhythmic contracting of these 2 layers is going to be called peristalsis. Okay, so we're going to call the rhythmic contraction of these 2 layers of muscularis peristalsis, and this is what we're going to use to squeeze the toothpaste through the tube. Okay, hopefully not toothpaste. Don't swallow toothpaste. There's lots and lots of fluoride in there, and it's not good on your stomach. However, it's good for your teeth, but less good for the stomach. But the stomach itself will actually have a 3rd layer, which we're going to use to kind of slosh the food around a little bit more. Now, one of the reasons that we have all that surface area, especially in the small intestines and large intestines, is going to be so that we have lots and lots of surface area for lots and lots of absorption. Okay, more surface area means we have more room for absorption, because we're going to need essentially one type of channel protein for every amino acid that we want to pull in, and another channel protein for every carbohydrate monomer that we want to absorb. Oh yeah, and another channel protein for every lipid monomer that we want to absorb. And all of those are going to have to be bound in the membranes of those cells, which means we need as much membrane of these cells as we can get. So you know how you saw those little lines here, like where we have ridges inside the intestine, and then those ridges have ridges? Well, those ridges also have ridges, and we call those villi. And then the cells on those ridges have their own ridges that we call microvilli. Why? So that we can vastly increase the amount of surface area of these membranes so that we can absorb as much of these, or as many of these nutrients as we possibly can. Now, one important thing is also going to be underlying all of these mucosa throughout the entire gastrointestinal tract, but especially in the intestines. And that is, we're going to surround them with lots and lots and lots of lymphatic capillaries. Okay. One, because we're going to be putting a bunch of fluid into the system. We need water. And like we need water in our food. We need water to move things through the gastrointestinal tract. So we need lots of fluid to help us do this. Also, as we're trying to absorb all of these nutrients, the water is going to follow them in a lot of cases. So that means we're going to have a bunch of fluid getting into these tissues. So we have a bunch of fluid to get out. But also, once again, we don't trust anything that's coming through this. Okay. There's a chance that bad bacteria are in here. Okay. Not even a chance. I guarantee you there are bad bacteria in here. Okay. Or good bacteria. Like your gut should have billions of good bacteria too. Okay. However, we don't want those bacteria in the blood, so we're going to have lots and lots of lymphatic capillaries in here monitoring all of this stuff as well. So this is where you get that mucosa-associated lymphoid tissue. Now we do have nerves in here so that we know what's going on and we can control those contractions and stuff like that. But once again, it is smooth muscle. So you cannot control the contractions of these things. They're just going to do so on their own. That's why when you're sitting in a meeting at 11 o'clock because someone's horrific and you're sitting there getting hungry, that you can't stop your stomach from growling. There's really nothing you can do. It's just going to growl and make the people beside you look at you all funny. But that's just how it is.
Why did you do that?
Yep. Well, it's because it's empty and it thinks that there's food in it. Or it doesn't think that there's food in it. It's used to there being food in it at that time, typically. So because of that, it will start to try and mix the food that's in there. So like I said, we add a third layer of muscle in the stomach. So we add this third layer of muscle so that we can really thoroughly mix the food, particularly in the stomach, okay? Our stomach's going to contain a couple of digestive enzymes to help us start to break down some of these proteins. It contains pepsin or pepsinogen and then also pepsin because of the acid. The acid helps activate pepsin so it can start to break down these really large proteins and turn them into slightly smaller proteins. But it's also going to, the acid's also going to help us mechanically break down some of the food as well. And we want to get as much of that acid touching as much of the surface of our food as we can. So we're going to do the same thing to the food in our stomach as we did to those potatoes I was telling you how to cook a little bit ago. And that's genuinely just shaking the shit out of them, okay? And that's what you're going to be doing with your stomach. So you have that third layer so that we can really, really thoroughly squeeze the stomach and continue mixing all that food up so that we can do as much mechanical breakdown of the food as we can. And we're going to turn it basically into liquid at that point called chyme, okay? So we're going to try and mix. The problem is if it's at a time when you normally eat and you haven't eaten, your stomach is still going to start mixing as though you have. So it starts to squeeze and it's squeezing on nothing but air. So because it's squeezing on nothing but air, you can start to hear those little air bubbles get pushed out as it's squeezing. So that's what it means like when your stomach is growling. It's literally air getting pushed out of your stomach from the muscles that are squeezing and stuff in your stomach because they're acting like there's food in there. And it also acts as another signal that says, hey, we are slightly hungry now, like you normally eat at this point. So could you please give me a Snickers bar or something like that? That'd be great. But like I said, we also are going to use peristalsis. So these sequential contraction of muscles to move things through the system, okay? So if we squeeze here, and then we also so say we contract behind our bolus of food, like in the circle. So we contract behind the circle. We're basically starting to squeeze the back of the tube. And then we contract just behind our bolus of food in that longitudinal layer. Well, that's going to cause that food to get pushed forward. And if we continue moving that circular contraction down the tube, as we continually contract at the back of the bolus, we can continue pushing the food forward. Now, to help us push the food forward, we'll also see a relaxation, particularly in the longitudinal layer in front of the food bolus. So by relaxing this way, it makes it easier for the food to move through it. Okay, so you basically kind of are going to take the lid off of the toothpaste tube and then squeeze behind it, and then continue just moving it forward and just kind of walk the food down through the tube. So that is propulsion, or what we call peristalsis, the rhythmic contraction. But we can also mix the food, and we do mix the food in our intestines and stuff like that. It just, because we don't have the third layer like we do in the stomach, it's not going to be as noticeable. But mixing the stuff is actually going to be very important. Less so in our esophagus. Like you can feel peristalsis happening in your throat. Like if you take a big bite of food and you don't chew it very well, or you just have a big bite of food even chewed well, and you swallow that big bolus, you can actually feel it kind of contracting and stuff like that as it's stretching your trachea because it's kind of pushing against it anteriorly. Now we do have some nervous control here basically to tell us, hey, we have food, like we are hungry. So hormones to tell us we're hungry, or hormones to tell us we're full, or nerve impulses to tell us that our stomach is full, or that we're running low on nutrients or something like that, so that we can initiate some sort of hunger responses so that you'll eat some food. Okay. Or to tell us you're done eating, you don't really need to do that. Okay. However, we can also send signals to various areas, whether to control particular reflexes in particular places so that we can cause movement through the GI tract, or just simply saying, hey, we need to secrete more enzymes to help us dissolve this particular thing or that particular thing. So for instance, like if you eat a really, really fatty meal, you'll tend to notice that you're like, when you eat a really fatty meal, you're going to kind of raise the pH in your stomach for a little while, typically. And you'll also need to secrete more hydrochloric acid into your stomach to help you get rid of those fats. So that will also tend to be followed by, well, now your stomach has too much hydrochloric acid in it, and there's too much of it volume wise, and it'll kind of start to leak out the top of your stomach and get into your esophagus. And anyone know what that's called when you have acid leak into your esophagus? Heartburn. And it's no fun. If you haven't experienced it yet, well, I'm happy for you. I'm also very angry about it since I have heartburn literally every day. Even on days that I eat really, really well and have consumed basically no fat, I still have heartburn. It's obnoxious to the point where I've taken medicine for it several times. All right. Now, when we get down here into our abdomen, we have a couple layers of fat in here. We have what we call the lesser omentum, which is going to be a little layer of fat up here. And then we're going to have this big sheet of fat surrounding or in front of all of the intestines. Okay, this is going to be what we call the greater omentum. When you look at this stuff, it's got these kind of strings of connective tissue helping hold all of this fun stuff together, but it's basically a big sheet of fat that's held together in this big network, or with this big network of reticular fibers. So it's it's got portions of it that are fairly dense, but it is all connective tissue. Okay, and it's going to cover most of our abdominal organs. It's sometimes called the fatty apron. There's another name that this goes by if you were to be at a grocery store, and that is caul fat. CAUL fat. You probably haven't done it, but you could, and it used to be very popular to buy caul fat, and this is basically going to be the greater omentum either of a sheep or a goat or a pig, and then you would basically use that greater omentum, that fat, to wrap another piece of meat. But because it's got all of that extra kind of connective tissue in there, it's going to help hold it all together. So you could basically do this to wrap something like a ham, and then it's basically getting basted by all of the fat in this greater omentum as you're trying to cook it down. But you also have these kind of dense stringy bits going through it that are going to help hold everything together. So people would sometimes wrap food in this caul fat or the greater omentum of something so that they could hold all the food together, which is fun. So here we can see all the small intestines. We have lots and lots and lots of small intestines. Here we can see a little bit of our large intestine. In this case, it's the transverse colon. All right, so here we, of course, have the mouth. We've got different kinds of teeth in here. We've got molars, we have incisors, we have canines, we have premolars in adults. We know that we also have the tongue here. Now, we know that the teeth are going to be for breaking down the food. Different teeth are going to do slightly different jobs when it comes to breaking down the food. Like the back teeth are going to be a lot better at kind of crushing things. So that tends to be why you tend to push stuff to the back of your mouth so you can continue crushing into the smaller pieces and stuff like that. Whereas the front's going to be a little bit more useful for doing a little bit of chopping and stuff. We can also get back here to the soft palate, which is basically going to be this region of tissue behind the maxilla up here. So we're getting down here into the soft palate, so where we have muscle, connective tissues, epithelial tissues, stuff like that. And then finally, we get down to the uvula. It's basically going to be the little ball that hangs down at the back of your throat. Now, keep in mind that we have some tonsils back here so that we can catch any potential or monitor stuff that's coming in to see if there have been any bad bacteria in it. Okay. Now, as we swallow the food, your tongue is going to press up against the hard palate and the soft palate. So we're basically going to shut off the mouth, and that's what's going to help push the food back towards our esophagus. However, it has to push all the way back here. Otherwise, the food can sometimes make a little path down here into your trachea, which is not where we want the food. Stupid rice. Okay. broccoli cheese rice in the case of yesterday. It's great. I did actually. Yesterday wasn't that bad. Like I didn't end up having like so much of it get down there that I end up coughing some of it out through my nose. But it has happened in the past. Chipotle, it's really, really bad about that. Because at Chipotle, I'm usually like, I'm in a hurry. So I am usually trying to eat definitely too fast. So I will inhale multiple pieces of rice in that case. But yes, no, yesterday I only had like one moment of coughing.
When you drink something wrong, why does it hurt sometimes?
Do what?
When you drink something and like you drink it wrong, why does it hurt sometimes? And it feels like your chest is on fire.
So what's
You know
happening
what I'm
there is
talking
it's, yeah, I know what you're talking about. So like the question is like, why does that hurt so bad? Like when something like that happens. So whenever you do swallow and your epiglottis doesn't get closed all the way, and some of that, whether it's water or rice or whatever that may be, works its way down into your trachea, oftentimes it will stop here at your vocal cord. Sometimes it'll go further. We hope it doesn't. But usually it's going to sit here and it's going to tickle your vocal cords, and you're going to have what's called a laryngospasm. So it's going to cause the muscles in your larynx to start to contract and vibrate so that we can try and close off and get that bad stuff out. We don't want it getting down into the lungs. So you're going to have this reflexive moment of, we're going to cough and push as much air out of our airway as we possibly can, basically with the idea of like, if we push hard enough, we will blow whatever it is that got blown in here out. And we will do so with a bunch of force. The problem is that to do that, well, just like we talked about last time, you use a lot of muscles when you're doing forced exhalation, right? We're not just using our diaphragm, we're using our internal intercostals. We are using our abdominal muscles in a lot of cases. And this is going to be reflexive, which means these things are just going to start contracting now, basically regardless of what you want to do or not. And because they're doing this, if you're doing this over and over and over again, these things are contracting about as hard as they can. They're contracting just as hard when you're coughing as they are when you're doing a sit-up. Okay, so that's going to hurt. Okay, they are basically they're essentially cramping at that point. But they're doing this to force as much air out with as much force as is possible out here, with the idea being that we're going to cause any of this stuff to get out. One of the reasons it can be so bad with liquids, like waters and stuff like that, is that they're sticky. Like water likes to stick to itself, or water likes to stick to something else that's wet, right? And so when they land on your cords, they're just going to sit on those cords. And because it's just a little tiny droplet of water in a lot of cases, it's going to stick around after a few coughs. And it may take a few bouts of coughing to finally get those little particles to have blown off to where you're no longer sensing that there's something sitting on your cords. So that's why. It's basically because you're having a bunch of essentially a bunch of muscle spasms. And by making your vocal cords vibrate against one another, it's part of why your throat gets sore and stuff like that too. It's because you're literally just like banging those cords against one another, making them grind and do all that fun stuff. Yay. Also, your soft tissues back here will get stressed and all that stuff too. So all this stuff will kind of start to turn red and inflamed, or can. Now, saliva is super gross, which is why we're not doing a saliva lab and never will. Because you can smell inside a room when they have been doing when a class has been doing a saliva lab. Like you walk in and it smells like spit, and there's virtually nothing in this world that I think is more gross. And it's like I can't stand it. Like we did a saliva lab at UTA every now and then, and thank God I never taught that class, because it's just like you would walk in, it's like nope. And even now, I'm like kind of getting sick to my stomach thinking about it. It's awful. Okay. It's the worst. Now, we make a lot of saliva over the course of the day. The average is between 1 and 1.5 liters. For perspective, this is a liter. That's a lot. Okay. Now, most of it is water. 99.5% of it is water. However, that 0.5% is what's going to make it horrendous. That other 0.5% is a bunch of things in the solution of the saliva. Namely, we're going to have amylase and lysozyme. Amylase is an enzyme. Anytime you see the letters ASE, that's going to tell you that you're looking at an enzyme, okay? So usually you're going to see ASE, and it will tell you what we are dealing with in the first part. Now, amyl is actually an old Latin root for sugar, okay? Or at least it shares one of the Latin roots for sugar. So amylase is going to break down complex sugars like starch, okay? So, oh man, I forgot to bring it. It's okay. I'll bring y'all food next time. But if you take a complex or like a starch and sit it on your tongue and sit it in your saliva for a few moments, it will turn that complex starch into some monomers of sugar. So it will turn it into some glucose. So like if you stick a potato chip or a piece of bread on your tongue and you leave it there for a few seconds, it'll actually start to taste just slightly sweet. Okay, that slight sweet that you're starting to taste is the glucoses that are being chopped off of that starch. That's actually part of why your body craves starch so much, or why we like starchy foods, is because your body knows that that is the single most efficient way of getting energy, nutrients, calories into our body. You get massive amounts of sugar and you get it now. It's readily available. We can use every single drop of it and we can use it quickly, which means your body tends to crave those kinds of foods just because it understands how efficient that kind of stuff is. That's why we like breads, pastas, potatoes, okay? All the fun stuff. Amylase will turn all of that fun stuff in your mouth into sugars that you can start absorbing into those tissues right then. Okay, this is part of why, like, because once again, these are all tissues, they have sugar receptors on them and they can start to pull sugar out. Like as long as we have insulin moving through, they can start to absorb some of these sugar. So we do this, we can start breaking down any of the starches that we're taking in, one, so that we get more time to break them down, but two, so that we can start to take in some of this stuff and we can start to take some of it in very, very quickly. This is part of why if you see someone that is very hungry or someone's having like a low, like a hypoglycemic moment or something like that, why you can give them some orange juice or something like that, and they'll start to absorb some of those sugars fairly quickly, and you can really raise their blood sugar levels quite fast. And that's because you do have some amount of absorptive power in a lot of places, okay, including just in your mouth right immediately. However, also though, don't do that and then blow on a breathalyzer. So I don't recommend like blowing on a breathalyzer while you have a sandwich in your mouth, because you will actually blow positive, because you will actually produce some alcohols just while you're doing that. So you will actually blow sometimes so positive that it looks like you're drunk. Just because of the amount of alcohol that you can produce as a byproduct of doing this process, which is, just, in my mind, thoroughly entertaining. Lysozyme is also fun. Lysozyme is going to be something we're going to use to break down some proteins. In the case of your saliva, it's less about digestion than it is about breaking down any potential bad bacteria or helping us kill any particular bad bacteria that are coming in, but it will help us break down proteins or start breaking down proteins. Mucin is very important. So once again, we can protect the mucuses or the mucous membranes in our mouth. So saliva is mostly water though. One of the things that we're doing with the water there is to moisten the food. If the food is not wet, it will not become a good bolus of food, and it is going to have a hard time passing down through our esophagus. It is going to act as a lubricant, okay? It's also going to help us dissolve the stuff in water so that we can taste some of those chemicals in it. Has anyone ever eaten anything like while their mouth was completely dry? Like if you take a paper towel and kind of dry off your tongue, then eat some food. One, don't do that. Two, you can't taste anything. You have to have the saliva to bring the chemicals down onto your taste buds to help you taste them. Okay. Water is very, very important in this process. The saliva is very important to help us dissolve some of those taste molecules so that we can actually taste stuff. That's also one of the reasons why you don't tend to taste things very well when you're sick, is because you also tend to be breathing through your mouth a lot. So your mouth tends to be very dry when you're sick. And because your mouth is very dry, you're not dissolving your food, so you don't really get much taste or flavor out of your food. Now we have three different salivary glands. We have a parotid salivary gland, which is the largest and is going to be secreting most of the saliva here. We've got two other ones down here. One is underneath the tongue, so it is conveniently named the sublingual salivary gland. Almost like that was done that way on purpose. And then we have the submandibular gland, which is going to be just underneath the mandibles here. So we have submandibular gland, sublingual salivary gland, and then finally we have the parotid salivary gland over here. Each of these is going to have their own ducts, and they're going to secrete their saliva in a couple of main places. The parotid one will be mostly secreting up here at the top of the mouth. The sublingual one's actually going to be down here behind a couple of little holes right behind your front teeth. And these are simple cuboidal epithelial, just like all glands. Then we chew. Teeth are awesome. Teeth are going to be composed of a couple of main layers of tissue. We have the enamel, which is this incredibly tough stuff on the outside. That's going to cover a layer of what we call dentin, and that's what's going to make up the body of most of the tooth. And then finally, we're going to get down into the pulp. This is where we're going to have all the blood vessels and a bunch of nerves and stuff like that. Now, all of your teeth are going to have some number of roots. Your incisors and canines are going to have one root. Those roots are basically going to be this extension down here that extends down into the mandible. It is held in place by denticulate ligaments that are going to connect the jaw, so whichever jaw, top or bottom jaw, the bone of the jaw directly to the bone of the root of the tooth. More roots means you have more surface area for more dentin, so you have a stronger hold. So your back teeth, which we do most of our chewing with and most of the crushing and stuff with, have 3 roots that are holding them in place, which means they are incredibly strong and incredibly well tied into the jaw. Also means that if something goes wrong in those and you have to take them out, that they don't want to go anywhere. Oftentimes, you have to physically cut them out, and it requires surgery to take some of them out. Okay, now if you do it while you're young or something like, say you're removing a wisdom tooth, usually they are going to try and remove those before they have completely tried to grow in, which means they're going to remove it before they have grown these big, long roots so that they don't have to deal with something quite as drastic as something like this. Like, does this look like the kind of thing that you would want to pull out? Probably not. Okay. You could literally break the tooth rather than pull it out of the jaw oftentimes. That is how well they are tied into the bone down here because of all these periodontal ligaments. Now, one of the things that's going to make them a lot harder, or making the enamel harder, is that we're basically entirely hydroxyapatite up here. So like the chemical component of the bones that make the bones hard is literally all that there is in the enamel. We don't have any collagen or anything up here though, which means they are hard and they are brittle. They do not have any give to them whatsoever. This means that they're going to be very good at crushing things and dealing with that kind of stuff. However, it also means that if you put enough strain on them in particular directions or really fast, that whenever they break, they just break. Okay, they don't break like a bone where it kind of breaks, but then it kind of repairs it. No. When they break, they just shatter. Okay, that's why you have people that have chipped teeth and stuff like that. Why you just literally takes one of these chunks and just lops it off. It just creates a fault line fracture and just truly just like chips off into a big piece, which is typically not how, like, you don't really hear about that happening very often to someone's arm bones. And that's a big part of the difference between having a bunch of collagen like we do in our arm bones. It helps make them flexible in addition to hard and strong, whereas the enamel, it's just the hard part. Does that make sense? So that's why we don't buy fishing line with your teeth, Matt. Dumbass. God, I hate being stupid. I literally have a chip right here because I was cutting some fishing line one day, and I knew better than to do it. And I had pliers in my pocket. I was truly just too lazy to pull them out. It's like, I just need to retie this bait real fast because I'm catching a bunch of fish here. Let me just, and I felt it happen. It's like, and my brother-in-law saw it like the next weekend because that's when my appointment was. It's like, because he's my dentist. It was even better. It's like, what'd you do? I put some fishing lines. Like, yeah, it looks like it. Like, at least you weren't smoking. All right, now we also know that we have what we call baby teeth. We call these baby teeth. Like when you're young, you grow 20 teeth. So that means you're going to grow 10 pairs of your different teeth. What we call baby teeth or deciduous teeth. They call them deciduous because they will fall out. So trees that drop their leaves are called deciduous trees. So the deciduous teeth are the ones that we are planning on losing. Okay, so typically these will start coming in around 6 months, sometimes a little earlier, sometimes a little later, and they'll hang around for a few years. However, they will eventually be replaced by our 32 permanent teeth. Okay, that will eventually start to push these out. Now, one of the reasons that we do this is because our jaws are very different in size as adults than they are as children. So we will replace them as our jaws kind of come to full size. We will push out those smaller teeth, which didn't have enough room. Because the permanent teeth just simply are going to be too big. We wouldn't have had enough room for them in the smaller jaws. But as we grow, we will start to slowly replace our small teeth with some larger teeth. Okay. Now, our last set of teeth, what we're going to call our third molars or our wisdom teeth, tend to come in late teens, early 20s. But our jaws oftentimes do not have enough space for them. So you can start to deal with issues where they are fighting against your other teeth and cause a bunch of crowding. They'll only come in partially, or sometimes they become impacted. My other brother-in-law, his came in sideways. And he just had those removed just the other day. So he was doing a bunch of bitching about that yesterday because he couldn't chew. Like, why do you have a tail? Yeah. Part of our evolutionary past. And like, once they are, if a problem arises after you have had a chance to procreate, there's not going to be any selective pressure against it. Like, unless it is going to be something that's going to inhibit your ability to make children, whether it's because it makes you attractive or less likely to survive to be able to do so, there's not going to be much selective pressure against it. So your wisdom teeth coming in and being bad and like causing a bunch of tooth problems and stuff like that, that's a problem that usually arises later on in life that you have to deal with. By that point, though, selective pressures are already gone. Oftentimes, like you've already had kids or something like that, so there's no selective pressure against it. So they just get to hang around. So yeah, so that's how a lot of those vestigial traits happen. Is it's just like, oh, we've gotten rid of these selective pressures against it far enough that it doesn't really matter because it hasn't affected our ability to have children. And then basically it's just full stop. So that's why we have goosebumps and all that kind of fun stuff. They're just vestigial traits. So your wisdom teeth are a vestigial trait, which is just obnoxious. I had to work 2 shifts after the day after I got mine removed because I was working 2 jobs at the time. Undergrad. Woohoo! I was super boring. I worked on average 45 hours a week all through undergrad. All right, so incisors, canines, premolars, and then finally molars. Now, these are deciduous teeth, so these are for youngins. Incisors, canines, so those are the pointy ones, and then they just immediately go into molars. Adults, we're going to have our incisors, which are the front 4, and then we're going to go into canines. Those are the spiky ones, and then we have a pair of premolars. Okay, these are mostly flat-ish, however, they're slightly sharper. And then finally, we get into the full molars, or first molar, second molar, third molar, i.e. wisdom teeth, and we're going to have that on top and bottom. So this is where we get to our full 32. But like I said, these third molars are oftentimes removed just because they will start to cause problems. Our mouths just oftentimes aren't large enough to grow them without causing crowding or something like that in between all of our other teeth. And one fun thing with this is actually it's got all the years and stuff listed up here for when these things can typically arise and stuff like that. So it's kind of fun. Yep, the wisdom are part of the 32. Yep. They're also called the wisdom teeth because these are the last ones that come in, usually after we're 17 or 18, 20 years old. So at that point, hopefully we have accrued some amount of wisdom so that we don't do like super stupid stuff. At least that's the idea behind the name. All I know is that I was still trying to ride skateboards off of roofs when I was 17. So not the most wise decisions. It never worked, literally a single time. I tried it over and over and over again. Bikes, all kinds of fun stuff. And just like bikes, I could make one. I could do the bike thing, but not a skateboard. Don't know why. All right. So then we go to the esophagus. Esophagus moves down. This is basically just a long muscular tube, and it's going to end at what we call the inferior esophageal sphincter, the lower esophageal sphincter. So that's going to be right here. This is basically going to be the final sphincter that's going to separate your stomach from the esophagus. Okay. Once again, it's made up of muscle, so we can push the food through it. Now, whenever we go to push food into it, we call this swallowing, or what it says up here is deglutition. This is basically just kind of what we're gonna be pushing with the tongue to help push stuff towards or from the oral cavity down to the stomach or down towards the esophagus. And we're going to see a couple of reflexes helping control that. So tongue pushes up, pushes the bolus of the food back towards the soft palate. Once we get towards the soft palate, the rest of the tongue will push up. So the tongue will essentially shut off the entire mouth. And it's going to then push the food back towards the esophagus. At this point, the epiglottis will close, should be closed, so that the food can't make its way into the trachea and then move its way down and force it down finally into the esophagus, where we're going to have those peristaltic contractions to push it down towards the stomach. And then finally, we're going to have the inferior esophageal sphincter open to allow the food to enter the stomach. Now, the stomach is awesome, okay? The stomach starts right here in this region here that we call the cardia. It has this raised portion, which we call the fundus. And then it's going to end down here, what we call the pyloric sphincter. It's going to be made up of the outer tissue layer and inner tissue layer so the inner mucosal layer, which are going to be filled with all these folds called rugae. And then finally, in between the rugae and the fundus, we have 3 different layers of muscle. The superficial most is longitudinal, then deep to that is the circular, and then finally deep to that is the oblique. But now by adding this 3rd oblique layer, we can squeeze the muscle in more directions or squeeze the stomach in more directions, so we can really get thorough mixing and sloshing around of the contents of the stomach so that we can get really good, efficient breakdown of the food in there. So this is going to be another form of mechanical digestion. It's just now it's very, very small, okay? So we're going to use these folds to help do some mechanical digestion. The stuff that we're sloshing around is mostly going to be hydrochloric acid, as well as a couple of digestive enzymes. The enzymes are going to be doing chemical digestion, but the acid is really still just mechanical, okay? Now, why do you think we have these folds? Surface area. Surface area. Why do we need surface area in this case? Well, it's so that we can secrete more acid into the space. However, these folds do something fun. These folds are also here for stretch. I don't know if y'all remember looking at the inside of the bladder just slightly last semester, how it had the transitional epithelium so that the inside layer could stretch. In this case, it also has these little folds on the inside of it to allow the whole organ as a whole to stretch as well. And that's what these rugae in the stomach are going to be doing. So in addition to giving us lots of surface area to secrete lots of acids, this is also going to be a big part of the distensibility of the stomach as well. Okay, these are basically going to be a bunch of little rigidy sections that when you push on them, they will basically stretch out until they're thin and you don't see the folds anymore. This is all lined with muscle, which can stretch, right? Being stretchable is one of the main criteria that muscles have. So this means that these muscular layers will also be able to stretch. So by holding a little bit of tension on these, it's basically like if you squeeze your pants too tight with a belt, you'll notice that it kind of creates those little folds. That's essentially kind of what's happening here with the muscles. If they hold some tension, they're going to cause that much larger layer of tissue on the inside to kind of fold up a little bit. Those folds are going to be these rugae. Lots of surface area, but it also means that you can stretch them back out. So if you eat 52 hot dogs or something like that and you shove them all into this little tiny bag, it will force the bag out to expand out around them. I haven't eaten that many. That's like world record level stuff. But that's Joey Chestnut, I think, may even be like in the 70s now with hot dogs inside 12 minutes, which is just bonkers. I can eat a lot of food, but nothing like that. Now, after the pyloric sphincter, we're going to enter what we call the duodenum. So the duodenum is the first segment of the small intestines, okay? Now, so in the stomach, like I said, we're going to be secreting a bunch of hydrochloric acid. To help us do this, we're going to be lining it with what we call gastric glands, okay? These are what are going to be expelling all of the secretions into the stomach or the gastric stuff, okay?
It's 83.
83. Jesus Christ. In 12 minutes. I hope y'all understand that that's in 12 minutes. Like that is a scary amount of food. Is it Joey Chestnut still? Okay, that's okay, good.
That one was Joey Chestnut.
Okay. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So much food. It's also more than a little disgusting, honestly. And if you've ever seen them eat it, it is incredibly disgusting the way they do that. Like they dip it in water so that they can just like swallow the bun whole. Nope. Either way, the stomach lining, those rugae, they're going to be lined with these gastric pits. And it's actually going to be these gastric pits, which are going to be found in that mucosal layer, which are going to be our source of all of those gastric secretions. Now, this is also going to separate or allow the mucosa to separate this region up here, which is filled with acid, from all of these muscular regions down here, which don't want to be in the acid. Okay. So we're going to have a large, thick mucosal layer so that we have lots and lots of protection for the underlying. Because once again, these are muscles and stuff like that. They don't want to be up here in that hydrochloric acid. So we're going to have a really thick mucosal layer to help us do that. And we call these big lines that go through them, the glands and stuff that make them up, we call those gastric pits. Now, inside these gastric pits, we're going to have different types of cells. Some of these are going to be secreting alkaline mucin. So they are secreting mucus that is alkaline in pH. Why? Because of all the stomach acid. This is your first line of defense here. We know that we're pumping a bunch of acid out into this space, so we're going to protect the cells around them with a layer of alkaline mucin so that they are covered with a layer of mucin that doesn't interact with the water very well, so that we're protecting the cells from that acid. So it's going to be very important to help us protect ourselves from the acid in the stomach. As you move down, we get into what we call the neck cells. These are still secreting mucin, and in this case, it's actually slightly less alkaline. Slightly less alkaline because we're not out here right up against this pH of like 2, which is what your stomach usually is between 2 and 3, which is real low. The ones that are actually going to be secreting our hydrochloric acid are going to be these parietal cells, the one that they're coded here in red. So these parietal cells are going to be secreting our hydrochloric acid. Now, the reason hydrochloric acid is important is because these are going to be activating pepsinogen. Pepsinogen is a protein secreted by the chief cells, and that pepsinogen, in the presence of hydrochloric acid, turns into pepsin. Pepsin is going to take large proteins and turn them into smaller ones. Okay, so pepsin is going to take large proteins and turn them into smaller ones, and that process will start here in the stomach. So by taking this big bolus of food and surrounding all of these proteins with pepsin, we can start to break them down and get them broken down into smaller chunks so that hopefully by the time they enter the small intestines or get done within the small intestines, we will have been able to chop them into small enough pieces that we can finally absorb them. Okay, we're also going to be secreting gastric lipase in the stomach by the chief cells. The gastric lipase, well, what do you think we're dissolving in this case? What do you think we're chemically digesting now? Lipids, lipase. So we are digesting lipids in this case. Okay, very good. And then finally, we're going to have our G cells down here. These are fun because these are going to secrete gastrin into the blood. This is basically a hormone that tells us, hey, we're full. So when your stomach gets full and it has a little bit of stretch on it, that basically sends a signal out, or sends a signal through these G cells. G cells and then send a signal out through the blood that says, hey, we are satiated. We are no longer hungry. There's some stuff in here about the different cells and kind of what they're signaling or what they're doing, how they do it. Here's how they do some mixing. So that's some fun stuff to look at. Today, what I'm trying to do is get us through the various bits of anatomy. And then when we come in next time, we'll really, we'll talk about the various enzymes that we're breaking down different things. And like, I'll probably give you all some Snickers bars or something like that as we're talking. All right. So now we've got our food now mixed into this lovely acidy liquid stuff in the stomach, and then it gets released into the duodenum. Okay. So the duodenum is the first segment of our small intestine. So we're going to go from the duodenum into this first set of folds, which is the jejunum. And then finally, we're going to go into the second set of folds, which is the ileum. Okay. So first set of folds is the jejunum. Second set of folds is the ileum. So duodenum, jejunum, ileum as we move down. Okay. Now, in the duodenum, we're not really going to be doing any absorption. In the duodenum, we're basically going to be starting our, or continuing our chemical breakdown of the food, okay? We're going to be secreting some enzymes, both from the pancreas and from the gallbladder. Okay, so the gallbladder is going to be secreting bile to help us deal with fats, and we're going to be secreting pancreatic lipase and pancreatic amylase from the pancreas to help us deal with lipids and sugars, respectively. We're also going to be secreting some additional enzymes from the pancreas to help us deal with proteins. And we're going to take those middle-sized proteins that we had leaving the stomach, and we're going to cut them into smaller proteins or polypeptides, which means once we get into the jejunum, we're going to be secreting enzymes that are going to turn those polypeptides into amino acids. Okay, that's going to be our goal. So we're going to continue breaking down proteins. We're going to start breaking down sugars, and we're going to continue breaking down fats here in the duodenum, and we're going to do that same thing in the jejunum. But now in the jejunum, we're going to finalize breaking down those proteins. Then we're going to start doing absorption, okay? So in the jejunum, we're going to finalize the chemical breakdown of proteins, sugars, and fats, and then we're going to start absorbing them into the blood. In the ileum, we're not going to be doing any more secretion, so we're not going to be secreting additional enzymes. In the ileum, we're going to be primarily focused on absorption. Lots of folds, which means we can do lots of absorption, okay? Then we're going to leave the small intestine and we will enter the large intestine, at which point we will try and recover as much water and electrolytes and stuff like that as we can from the leftover food, so from the food waste. Now, the small intestines are going to look like this, where we have a bunch of these circular folds on the inside, which once again give us lots and lots of surface area so we can do more absorption. These circular folds are also going to slow the passage of the food down as it's moving through them, making sure it slows down. By slowing it down, it gives us, guess what? More time for absorption. So we're slowing it down for more time, and we have more surface area for more absorption. Oh, and we have more length for, once again, more time to do more absorption. More. That is the goal. We're trying to make this process as efficient as we possibly can, okay? We're going to have an outer circular layer, and then we're going to have this this mucosal layer here, which has a bunch of folds. Those folds will then be covered in more folds that we call villi, and those villi are going to be covered in cells that are going to contain microvilli, all to increase surface area for additional absorption and additional secretion. Lots and lots and lots and lots of surface area for lots and lots and lots of absorption and secretion. Okay. Now, in those villi, so in these little finger-like projections of the circular folds, we're also going to find lacteals, which are going to be these lymph vessels that will be expanding through here, or extending through here, so that we can absorb fatty substances and stuff into the lymph. Because once again, blood doesn't carry fats very well, but we can absorb more fatty substances into the lymph. That's why they're called lacteals, because lact, like milk, is because the substances, like the lymph in this region, is going to appear sometimes even somewhat white because of all of the fat that's in it. So here we have one of the circular folds. So here's a circular fold. So those are the ridges that we saw being big. Those are going to be covered in these little finger-like projections, which we call villi. And then those villi are going to be covered in cells that will contain microvilli. That's our progression. Circular fold to villi to microvilli. So that we get surface area on top of surface area on top of surface area. I need to look up and see what the actual like squared meterage is of surface area on here, so I can give you like tennis court or larger. I want to say it's larger. Now we're also going to have a bunch of goblet cells in here secreting mucin so that we can protect ourselves from the stuff that's out here. We also need to be secreting some alkaline substances, particularly into the duodenum, because once again, this is coming out of the stomach, so it's filled with lots and lots of hydrochloric acid, so we need to calm it down a little bit. We're going to be secreting lysozymes to help protect us from bad bacteria, but also help us break down proteins and all kinds of fun stuff like that. Now, here we have our gallbladder. Our gallbladder is basically going to be a storage site for the bile. It will get secreted out through our common bile duct. And then finally, it will go out through this little papilla right here, okay? So this is our major duodenal papilla. This is basically going to be the entrance point for both our bile juices, so our bile salts, as well as from our pancreatic duct. Our pancreatic duct, remember, is going to be containing pancreatic lipase, pancreatic amylase, and trypsin. So 3 things that are going to help us break down collectively proteins, fats, and proteins, lipids, and sugars. Now, your liver is kind of fun. We've got 2 primary lobes. We have the right lobe and the left lobe. This is also one of the densest areas of cells in your entire body. Your liver has lots and lots and lots of little tiny cells. So it's one of the densest areas as far as both cells and as far as DNA as your body will have. So much so that if I needed to take a DNA sample of my lizards when I was doing work as a student, most of the time I would cut them open and take out the liver, because I could use a smaller liver chunk to get all of the DNA and stuff that I needed out of a tissue sample than I needed out of anything else. So oftentimes I would grab livers. So I got really good at finding lizard livers and snake livers and frog livers and stuff like that. Now, one fun thing that happens with our liver is that it's going to be built in these little hexagon shapes. Hexagons are the bestigons. And these hexagons give us lots and lots and lots of surface area. They also give us lots of strength and lots of rigidity and stuff like that. They're also going to be all associated around a single structure here in the middle. This is going to be one of our hepatic veins, or the central vein of each of these hepatic lobules. So these little hexagons are our hepatic lobules, and these are all organized around a central vein. Now, at the edges, so the apexes of our hexagons, you're going to find what we call a portal triad, okay? Where we have 3 vessels side by side, where we have a bile duct, we have a hepatic portal vein, and we have a branch of the hepatic artery. What we are doing here then is we are moving blood past all of these hepatic cells so that these hepatic cells can monitor them for toxins and anything that could potentially be bad, whether it's ethanols or anything like that. So ethanol, like alcohol, it is very good at getting the alcohol out of your cells. And this is basically going to be doing this because we're routing the blood past it, and they're basically going to be absorbing that ethanol as it is moving through here. We're going to route a lot of your blood through the liver basically all the time. That's also why if you've ever eaten liver, it tastes very, very metallic. Okay, so if you've ever had chicken livers or something like that, it is very metallic in flavor, in part because it's going to be a very bloody meat. There's going to be a lot of blood in that tissue, lots of cells in that tissue, and that's where you're going to get a lot of that metallic tang. Is actually going to be because of the amount of blood that's just going to be living in the liver, and that's because we're routing tons and tons of blood through it all the time. But once again, these are little small cuboidal cells in here. We call this connection or collection of the bile duct, hepatic portal vein, and hepatic artery, we call this a portal triad. And like I said, you're going to see one of these at the apex of all parts of the hexagon. Now, we're doing this because, once again, we don't trust this blood. Why do we not trust this blood? Because this blood just came from the intestines. And what lives in your intestines? Bacteria. More bacteria live in your intestines than human cells live in you. Okay? Because of that, we do not trust it. They may be our friendly bacteria. They're the bacteria that we know and like, but we still also don't trust them. Like, just like you know and like the people at your local Chick-fil-A or whatever, I guarantee you when they hand you your food through your window, what's the first thing you do? You check your food. You open the bag and make sure that you have the correct number of fries and sandwiches and things, or salads or whatever. Okay? Actually, they have really good salads at Chick-fil-A. I don't know if you've had them. Like the chicken cob, it's actually quite tasty. They come with these little fried, like red peppers, which are actually super tasty. Either way, we still don't trust them. We're still going to check it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to check all of the blood that is leaving the intestines by routing them through the liver so that we can monitor them for bacteria or enzymes, or like bacteria, toxins, all kinds of fun stuff, just to make sure that all this stuff is clean. We're just going to make sure, hey, everybody good, everybody good, everybody good, by routing it through the intestines, making sure there's nothing bad in there before we return that blood to circulation. Because once again, the last thing that we want to do in our circulation is return bad stuff into the blood. Okay, so we're monitoring the blood for bad stuff here using our liver and our hepatic portal system, in addition to secreting bile to help us digest fats or things that are fatty. Now here's our pancreas. Here is our chicken finger. So we have the tail of the pancreas, so the end of our chicken finger body, and we have basically some ducts passing through it. Remember that we've got two main functions in the pancreas. Part of it is endocrine, and part of it is going to, in this case, be digestive. So this is one of our pancreatic acini. So this is basically one of the digestive glands that's going to be found inside our pancreas, where we are secreting pancreatic juices. Pancreatic amylase to digest starch. It is alkaline. Why do you think it's alkaline? What's coming out of the stomach? Acid. So we need to secrete some alkaline fluids in here just to bring the pH levels back up, right? pH of the stomach is something like 2 to 3. pH in the intestines needs to be in the 5 to 6 range, which means we need to bring it up, and we need to bring it up quickly. So we're going to bring it up using our alkaline fluids in our pancreatic juices. Amylase, digest starch, lipase to digest lipids, and then proteases that are going to digest these proteins, as well as, here's a big one, nucleases for digesting nucleic acids. These are important, okay? Because we have DNA, right? We need to recover that DNA. You all right? That's also why pancreatic cancer can be so bad, because it can affect lots and lots and lots of fun stuff. All right, then we move into the large intestine. Once again, the large intestine is where we're going to recover water. Okay, so our large intestine has 3 major groups. We have the ascending, transverse, and descending colon. And then we're going to enter what we call the sigmoid colon. Sigmoid because it's going in this kind of S curve. And then finally, we're going to have the rectum, which is basically going to be a storehouse for feces. And then finally, we have the anal canal, where we're going to then relax that to expel any feces that has collected. Okay, so our whole goal in the large intestine is going to be recovering water and electrolytes. Okay, by moving food through the large intestine, we're going to basically be able to pull a bunch of water out of that very watery solution that was in the small intestine and pull as much of that water out as we can so that we can continue concentrating it. Now, we're going to concentrate it into these little pouches. The little pouches in our large intestine we call haustra. These pouches in humans are an inch or so across, maybe a little bit bigger. In some folks, a little bit smaller than others. In deer, they're like that big. So half an inch, which is also the same exact size as a deer pellet. So if you've ever seen like deer poop on the ground, they're the size of these haustra. Also, deer pellets are very dry because they have been very efficient at pulling the water out of their food. Okay. They don't drink a whole lot of water. Most of the water that they're taking in their diets is actually going to come in their food. So their poops tend to be very, very dense, like very, very hard, not very liquidy at all. If you take a cow, which has even more water in its food, their feces tends to be far more watery. Okay, just simply because they're getting a massive amount of water in their food. But here's the fun bit. We can control how much water we're going to absorb. If you are well hydrated, you don't need to pull as much water out of your food, so your feces will be softer because it will contain more water. Why? Because we don't need to absorb as much water because we have enough water in our blood, so we don't need to absorb as much, so we can allow more of that water to pass out through our feces, which means our feces are softer and things like that. That's also one of the reasons that laxatives and stool softeners and stuff like that work to allow you to move past blockages and stuff like that in here, because they're basically going to cause this area to absorb more water so that the feces gets a little bit softer, so it's easier to pass. However, sometimes really, really, really fun things happen and you get stomach bugs. And instead of this process taking a day or 2 to go all the way from your mouth out through your rectum, instead, this can happen in the span of an hour or less. So you don't have that much time to absorb the nutrients from your food. It also means that you don't have much time to absorb the water from your feces, nor would you want to, because once again, there's bad bacteria in it. So there's a reason you don't want it. We don't we just don't trust that stuff. So when we really don't trust that stuff, we're just going to push this out real fast. However, it also means that, well, we haven't absorbed any water, which means the stuff that's coming out here has a lot of water. That diarrhea is so liquidy because we're not spending enough time in the intestines to absorb all the water from it. Once again, it's because in large cases, it's because there's a chance that there's something bad in that liquid, like in that food that we took in. So bad bacteria, viruses, anything like that in this fluid. So your body basically is going to try and expel it before it has a chance to absorb any of that stuff and make things worse. But it also means that you're having diarrhea, which means you're going to have lots and lots of liquid in your feces. However, that also means, guess what, that you need to be doing? Well, you're not absorbing this water. So what do you have to do as a patient? Drink water. We need to try and return water into our body's tissues. We're going to do that by needing to drink more water. So that's why you're always told whenever you have a stomach bug or something, especially if you're having diarrhea and stuff like that you need to drink more water. And that's because you're not having enough time to absorb the water from your gut. So you need to drink additional water to make sure that you can keep fluid levels and stuff like that in your blood fine. Now, we're going to receive the signal that we need to go to the bathroom from right here, okay? As our rectum fills up with feces, so fills up with fecal matter, it's going to put some stretch on this internal anal sphincter right here. As we start to stretch on this internal anal sphincter, that's essentially going to send a signal to our brain that says, hey, you need to go to the bathroom. And then when you go to the restroom, you will relax both the internal and external sphincters to allow that feces out. Now, your large intestines, we do not have villi. We just have a really thick mucosal layer, once again, to protect us from potential bad bacteria up here with lots and lots and lots and lots of goblet cells. Goblet cells to say lots and lots and lots of mucus up here to protect us from all of the bacteria that are trying to digest all this food that we couldn't digest, okay? So they're going to be up here secreting a bunch of mucus to try and protect us from all these bacteria up here, but we will be absorbing a lot of liquid and stuff like that. Once again, we're going to be filled with lots and lots and lots of bacteria here. They are very important, though, in helping us break all this stuff down. Keep things nice and relaxed. Okay. Okay. So when we come back next time, we will talk a little bit about nutrition. So we'll talk about proteins, lipids, carbohydrates, and stuff like that. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about each of the enzymes that are helping us dissolve these things. And to help us do that, I will likely give us some candy and stuff like that, so we can talk about the different pieces in it and talk about what's dissolving what, where it's happening, where we're doing those absorptions and fun stuff like that. Okay, so we will have a couple of lab type activities and stuff to do next time. We may even do a couple of virtual labs too. This semester is so much slower than AP1. Oh, you didn't enjoy doing 5 chapters in 2 days? No, like we have a whole week to do 1 chapter. What is this? Oh, also, I'll go ahead and remind y'all now that we have an exam due next Monday, week of Thanksgiving break. We do not come to class Monday. Instead of coming to class, take your exam. I cannot make you come to class. I cannot make y'all sit down and do virtual class or anything like that. However, we have to have an assignment. In this case, that assignment is your exams. Is it Thanksgiving week? Yes, but I'm at least nice and not making it due after Thanksgiving, okay? Because that would be hilarious. It also means no one would do it. But let's make sure that we are doing those next week. So don't forget about that. So no class. So you can make your plans to not have to be here. But make sure you do take your exams. I'm actually almost done grading y'all's lecture exams, by the way. Now that my internet at home is working. Dude, no, it wasn't front. Like ours is just Optimum, and they just are awful. So, although supposedly AT&T is building some fiber into our neighborhood, it's just not available yet. Literally, the day it becomes available, I will pay them. that was part of why that last test took so long for me to grade, is because I had to do a bunch of my grading up here, just because my home internet wasn't working. And on like I was even doing a bunch of it using my phone as my as a hotspot to link my computer up to until I started getting throttled based off bandwidth. So Blackboard, I don't know if y'all like, if you are tech savvy, you can actually measure like how much pull, like what the strain on your network is based off of different things. Blackboard is horrendous. It is one of the most inefficient websites on the planet. Like it pulls ridiculous amounts of internet bandwidth to make it work and computing processing power. So yeah, the next time that you're logged into Blackboard, like pull up your task manager and just look at how much CPU it's using, like how much memory and stuff. And then like also look at your network and just see how much bandwidth it's pulling. It's fun.
See you Wednesday,
See you Wednesday.
but not Monday.
Not Monday. Oh, what candy do y'all want? Something that has sugar, fat, and protein. Something with peanuts, basically. Snickers? Y'all go with Snickers? Sweet. Snickers it is. Yesenia, have you got any questions for me?
I do not. I'm actually trying to look and see how much hotspot I use